Okay, it's Monday, the 10th of January, 2022. Here in a little bit, I've got to go to the school, Benjamin and I, and pick up Aurora, Ashton, and Zara Rose. Linda and I earlier had to go get Cheyenne from school. He was running a high temperature, like 103, throwing up. We went and got him, brought him home. We no sooner got home, and here comes Nick. He's sick and had to come home from work. Then I got a phone call from Brandon. Someone where they work sabotaged one of the chainsaws. He wanted to know if I thought he should call the head guy and report it. And I said, of course. Linda went in to retrieve Shy and had a talk with one of the teachers. I won't name her name. I don't know if what she said was in confidence or not, but evidently COVID-19 is raging through the elementary school, as is the flu, as is a 24-hour stomach bug. My best friend Jerry had a 48-hour stomach bug. It's that time of year. I've been sick today myself. I'm fairly resilient. I'm having a hard time breathing, but I'm absolutely positive it's just allergies. I prayed real hard about putting those children of ours back in public school, and I felt it was the proper thing to do, and I still think it was the proper thing to do, even with COVID going through the school system. A friend of mine, Dan Cooper, Danny, is the chief of police in Davis, Oklahoma, and he reported on Facebook last night. He's an actual friend, not just a Facebook friend. He's got COVID. I know several people right now who do have COVID-19. Scary times we live in. Right now, I've got a really bad headache. I'm 99% sure I don't have COVID. I get headaches throughout the day. I have been doing so for a couple of years. It's due to other problems I have, not COVID-19. I get done picking up the kids from school and shutting down in here. I'll get a bath, and then it's debatable whether or not I'm going to be going to the parlor to watch anything this evening. It's like self-imposed isolation. My son Benjamin is making onion garlic soup. To any of you that are wanting to know what that does, it's nature's antibiotic, and it will kill out most things, especially viruses. It's an antiviral as well, topically and internally. The recipe to that is you take 5 cloves of garlic, and you chop them up. You take one large onion, you chop it up, you get some water boiling, you put a teaspoon of salt in there. That helps it boil a little faster, believe it or not. You put the ingredients in that pot once it's boiling, and you boil it for 10 minutes. And then you turn the heat off, leave it where it was, you put a lid on it, you let it steep for another 10 minutes. Then when you pour it up into cups, you eat the garlic, onion, and the liquid. And yeah, your breath's going to smell terrible for a bit, but what happens, it kills out a lot of different organisms in your body. That's about all that's going on with me. I just watched episode 4 of 1883. They finally released it. I think the deal was they were going to wait for the series finale, not the season finale, but series finale on Yellowstone. And 1883 is the prelude to the television series Yellowstone. It's very well done. All the period saddles, firearms, dress, everything is what it was like back then. I'm a bit of a historian. That's another thing my dad handed off to me. Daddy knew what was actual period and what wasn't, especially about firearms. I sat at his knee when I was a young child, and he told me all about what guns were what back in the Old West. And I paid attention, and I studied on top of that. I have a friend named Peter Sherayko that he was the outfitter, horses, costumes, saddles, firearms, all of it on the movie Tombstone. And he is also one of the actors in it. He played Texas Jack Vermillion. But I have known Peter way before he ever did the movie Tombstone. Actually, Dad knew him too. We met him at gun shows. My earthly father would go to gun shows a lot. He made a lot of money off of gun shows, and trading guns, trading coins, trading knives, trading all kinds of stuff. He'd go and he'd set him up a table, and he'd have his wares out there. Dad knew the value of things. But there's another guy named Jack Glover my dad knew that had Sunset Trading Post at Sunset, Texas, and I learned some from Jack. But a few years ago, I called Pete on a movie he was working on about period saddles and period firearms on it, and he private messaged me, and he said, I figured you'd be the one to call me on it. What it was, he had a bunch of greenhorns riding horses and a few other things in this one movie, and I won't name the movie. It was a B-grade movie. He was in it too, but he was outfitting it. And his explanation to me was, I'm tired of actors that can't ride. I'm tired of actors that can't handle a firearm. He's talking about Westerns. And it still bothers him to this day. He posted a picture on Facebook of a TV series or a TV movie they were shooting, and these 4 actors are at a walk and they're hanging onto the saddle horn while they're riding down there. That really bothered peed a lot, and and I told him, yeah, maybe you ought to open a dude ranch. Being a little sarcastic, I started riding a horse, and Mom, I don't think you know this about me. I started riding a horse when I was 5 years old. Um, I had relatives on my mother's side of the family that had ranches in southern Oklahoma, and I started riding when I was 5. When I was 9 years old, I stole a horse at the Ringling sale. When I say I stole it, the Price Ranch are all relatives of mine on my mother's side over in southwestern Oklahoma. And I stole an old nag, and I mean it was the ugliest, skinniest thing. But I walked up to that horse at that sale barn, and I found me a piece of rope, and I made an Indian harness for it. And I opened the gate, and I climbed on that thing, and I rode it. I got caught 2 miles west of Ringling. I was riding it home, and the sheriff showed up. I can't remember his name. He was a Jefferson County sheriff back then. That was decades ago. And hit the siren, one of those old, like an air raid siren on his car, and he had one red light on top of his car. Pulled me over, or pulled up behind me. I got off the horse and I held on to the Indian reins. And he was just about, he'd tied that horse to his back bumper. I guess he was going to lead it back to the sale. And this horse was from an Amish family south of Ringling. And the Amish, I hate to say this, a lot of times the Amish just look at an animal as a tool. And this thing was older. I think it was like 10 or 11 years old, and it had been badly abused. I mean, its hooves needed help. It was rail thin. If you ever saw the old comic strip Tumbleweeds in the newspaper, it looked like that one horse, that spit tobacco out and had a protruding bottom lip and sway back and looked like it was a buffalo. Well, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was pretty bad. And it was only about 13 hands high. It wasn't a real big horse, but the sheriff was getting ready to put me in handcuffs and put me in his car when my uncle Shot Price showed up. He was in his pickup, and he said, "Oh, you don't want to do that." First of all, Shot was huge. All those Price men were really big men, and the sheriff said, "Well, he stole his horse." No, he didn't. He just didn't take the bill of sale with him. And so he handed a bill of sale to the sheriff, and my Uncle Shot paid $35 for that horse. Now, back then, that was a lot of money for basically a foundling, something that was foundering, the horse was. And the sheriff, well, can't argue with that. So he untied the horse, and I got back on it. It was another 2 miles to where Shot and his family lived, and I had to ride that horse in the dark all the way down there with him behind me to make sure nobody hit me. Got in there, and he wasn't mad at me. He said, "I've loved a horse that much." And he made me work that horse off on during the summers when I'd come down there and see my grandpa and stuff, and we'd go down there, and I'd work mucking out stalls and doing all kinds of things. But I never did have a saddle. Didn't really ever had never had an actual bridle. I just used that same old Indian bridle I fashioned. And it was a gelding. It wasn't a mare. And I named that horse Nobby because that just seemed like it fit. And I had that horse for another 10 years. Well, I say I did. Eventually, I got to where I didn't have time when I became a teenager, and the prices just kept it. And I think that horse died of internal parasites. We wormed it and everything when we had it, but it got something other than bots, and it killed it when it was about 17 years old, something like that. That was my very first, my own horse, and I've had several since then. But that's a little bit of history, Mom, you didn't know about me, and a little bit about Dad you didn't know. Daddy had a lot of folks he was friends with that were in the movie business and a few other businesses that were friends of his early on. And my earthly father was one of the friendliest, most amiable folks you'd ever want to meet in your life, and he made friends easily. He had the gift of gab, and he wasn't afraid to be kind to folks. Now, I've got to get off of here. I've got to go get kids here in about 15 minutes. I got to load up. So this thing will be loading. It'll be loaded before I get back from school. Mom, John will love you. Michael will love you. Everybody else will love you. Be kind. God bless you, and bye.